are surging. No signs of slowing down. It's happening despite an agreement made back in 2019 between the United States and Mexico, where the U.S. agreed to suspend a 25% tariff on steel imports from Mexico if Mexican companies did not exceed the levels of shipments coming into the United States. Joining me right now, a man who is personally impacted, Zekelman Industries Chairman and CEO Barry Zekelman is back with us. Zekelman Industries is the largest independent steel and pipe tube manufacturer in North America. Barry, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I want to get your take on these imports coming from Mexico. You say Mexican steel shipments to the United States are now 800% above the agreed trade limits. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's amazing, Maria. I mean, we negotiated agreements with the likes of Canada, Brazil, and South Korea to get out of 232 duties. They adhere to the quotas. They adhere to the levels, but Mexico doesn't. I mean, somehow they get this hall pass and just snub their nose at us. I know that Ambassador Tai has done a great job talking with Mexico and trying to reimpose or impose these agreements. Secretary Raimondo is on top of it as well, but we need to put some teeth into trade negotiations that we've done and agreements that we've made. It's amazing that Mexico gets away with this. It's at the cost of a lot of jobs here in America. We've closed a plant with 150 USW workers. I mean, President Biden sits there and seems to say that he's all for American workers and union workers. And here's a case in point where they're doing the exact opposite and actually costing Americans jobs.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about the deal that's out there today with Nippon buying U.S. Steel. I mean, who do you think U.S. Steel's single largest customer is? It's us. Without us, U.S. Steel doesn't exist. So it's no point protecting U.S. Steel for the American worker if they don't have anybody to sell to. So you have to look down that chain. And Mexico agreed to this. Let's enforce the agreement. We have to put teeth behind the trade agreements that we enforce. The same thing's happening in places like sanctions against Oman and Russia. Or Russia and Iran. I mean, Iran and Russia ship steel to the UAE, turn it into plumbing pipe to circumvent those sanctions, and it's coming in here at rates we've never seen before, costing American workers jobs. So if you've got UAE plumbing pipe, it's blood money on your hands. That's what's flowing through that pipe, not water.
You just mentioned that you had to close the Long Beach mill that you had, the Zekelman Industries Long Beach mill. You had to cut 150 jobs. That was a couple of years ago, back in 2019. But I want to get your take on what kind of trade policy you think would work, because former President Trump kept tariffs and trade issues at the front of the agenda. There was an article recently in the Washington Post that he's gearing up for a trade policy war with China. Should he return to the White House? Of course, we know that President Trump already had, endorsing revoking China's most favored nation status for trade. That could reportedly lead to federal tariffs on Chinese imports. We don't know how big. 40% is what the Washington Post talked about. But tell me how you would like to see trade change in terms of protecting U.S. manufacturers.
Well, first and foremost, we have trade policies in place. We have agreements in place. We need to enforce them. We're not asking to redo them. So, and first off, enforce what's there. Next, we have to look at our trade policies and look and say, how are we going to balance trade? How are we going to have fair trade and equitable trade? I mean, Maria, I feel like I'm standing in a boxing ring with my hands tied behind my back and my own corner is punching me in the face. I mean, it's maddening. I don't know how we can say it, more clearly. Just enforce the agreements that are there. Enforce the duties that are there. I mean, with China, we have a huge problem. They ship over here and they get under the de minimis rule. So they ship goods over here, they break bulk, and anything under $800 comes in duty free. So they ship mass shipments in, break them down to small, and circumvent the duties. That's one place to start. You can't have a systemic $500 billion trade deficit with China for decades, every year. It doesn't work. It won't work for America. And everybody has to realize that cheap is actually expensive. Every one of these imports we bring in costs Americans jobs. It costs Americans tax dollars. We
Yeah.
don't have wages that then you pay taxes on. And last I checked, we've got a $34 billion or $1 trillion deficit that we need to
Yeah.
eat into. Let's
So,
help
so
ourselves.